There are certain places on this earth that seem forever stained by tragedy. They become synonymous with a single, dark event, a question mark on the map of human history. One of those places lies deep in Russia's Ural Mountains, on a desolate, wind-scoured slope called Kolatchakhl, in the language of the indigenous Mansi people. This name is often translated as Dead Mountain. It's a name that would become a horrifying prophecy. In the winter of 1959, this mountain was the final resting place for 9 of the Soviet Union's most experienced young hikers. Their deaths were so bizarre, so violent, and so completely baffling that the official investigation could only conclude they were killed by a compelling natural force. But that vague explanation is like saying a house burned down because of an unfortunate thermal event. It hides a terrifying truth. The official story points to a tragic accident, but it falls apart under scrutiny. It doesn't explain why 9 seasoned mountaineers would slash their way out of a perfectly good tent in the middle of the night, only to run into a Siberian blizzard without shoes or proper winter gear. It doesn't explain the victims' massive internal injuries, bones crushed with a force like a battering ram, but with no external wounds. And it certainly doesn't explain the horrifying state of some of the bodies, with one woman found missing her tongue and eyes. For over 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass mystery has been a chilling campfire story. But this isn't just a story from the past. Modern rumors from that same haunted slope suggest that whatever tore them apart all those years ago may not have gone away. To understand the horror of what happened on Dead Mountain, you have to understand who these people were. They weren't amateurs. They were the best of the best. The group, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, was made up of students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. 8 men and 2 women, most in their early 20s, all with Category 2 hiking certifications. They were on this very trip to earn their Category 3, the highest certification available in the Soviet Union. This was a grueling 16-day, 200-mile expedition through the unforgiving northern Urals in the dead of winter. It was a challenge they were uniquely prepared for. Their journey began on January 23, 1959. The early days were filled with youthful optimism. Their own photos and diaries, found later, paint a picture of a tight-knit group, laughing, singing, and embracing the brutal beauty of the frozen landscape. One of them wrote in a journal, "I wonder what awaits us in this trip. What will we encounter?" Looking back, that sentence is almost too painful to read. On the 5th day, one member, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back. A flare-up of chronic joint pain made it impossible for him to go on. He said his goodbyes, watching his 9 friends ski away until they were just specks in the vast white emptiness. Yuri would be the expedition's only survivor, a man haunted for the rest of his life by the twist of fate that spared him from the nightmare to come. The remaining 9 pushed on. On February 1st, they started their ascent of Kolatchakhl. The weather, which had been difficult but manageable, turned on them. A vicious snowstorm rolled in, throwing them off their intended path. Disoriented and losing visibility, they made a strange and fateful decision. Instead of retreating to the relative safety of the forest below, they pitched their tent on the exposed, open slope of the mountain. For such experienced hikers, this was a bizarre breach of standard safety protocol. It was like a veteran sea captain choosing to anchor in the middle of a shipping lane during a storm. It would be their last camp. They were due to send a telegram from their destination by February 12th. When no message came, their family started to worry. By February 20th, with still no word, a full-scale search and rescue operation was launched. What it would uncover defied all logic. On February 26th, the rescue team finally spotted it. A single, partially collapsed tent, almost invisible in the snow. As they got closer, the scene became even more disturbing. The tent hadn't just collapsed, it had been sliced open from the inside. All of the group's belongings, their boots, warm coats, maps, and food, were still neatly arranged inside. But the hikers were gone. Outside, the searchers found a chilling trail of footprints. 8 or 9 sets of prints led away from the camp, down the slope toward the tree line a mile away. The tracks told a story of pure panic. Some were from bare feet, others just socks. In temperatures dropping to -22 Fahrenheit, or -30 Celsius, these 9 experts had fled their only shelter in a blind rush. It was like running from a burning house, but leaving the fire escape behind. They abandoned the very equipment that could have saved their lives. Why? What could possibly drive them to do something so suicidal? The footprints led down the desolate slope. The first grim discovery was made nearly a mile from the tent, at the edge of the woods, beneath a towering cedar tree. There they found the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, dressed only in their underwear. The remains of a small, desperate fire were nearby. The branches on the cedar tree above them were broken up to a height of 15 feet, suggesting one of them had frantically tried to climb it, maybe to get a better view or to escape something on the ground. Their hands were torn and bloody from the effort. Both had officially died of hypothermia. But that simple diagnosis made no sense. They had fled a warm tent only to freeze to death trying to start a tiny fire in the open. The mystery only got deeper. Over the next few days, searchers followed a path back from the cedar tree toward the camp. Between the woods and the tent, they found 3 more bodies. The group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Their position suggested they were desperately trying to crawl back to the shelter they had fled. They too had died of hypothermia. But Rustem Slobodin's body presented a new, terrifying clue. He had a small but significant fracture in his skull. It was the first sign that this wasn't just a case of freezing to death. Something violent had happened on that mountain. For 2 months, the search went on for the other 4 hikers. Finally, in early May, as the deep winter snow began to melt, their bodies were discovered in a ravine, buried under more than 10 feet of snow. They were dressed better than the others, some even wearing clothes taken from their dead friends, suggesting they'd survived for a while after the initial event. But their condition turned the case from a tragedy into a tale of absolute horror. This is where the story defies rational explanation. These last 4 hikers had suffered injuries unlike anything the investigators had ever seen. Nikolai Thibault Brignol had a massive, crushing skull fracture. Alexander Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina both had multiple shattered ribs. The doctor performing the autopsies said the force required to cause such damage was immense, like being hit by a car, yet noted the bodies had no significant external wounds. It was as if they had been put in a giant vise and squeezed until their bones broke, leaving the skin untouched. And then there was the final, ghastly detail. The body of 21-year-old Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, her eyes, and parts of her lips. Zolotaryov was also missing his eyes. While the unsettling discovery has fueled theories for decades, forensic experts suggest these injuries were likely the result of natural decomposition and scavenging by small animals, as the bodies lay in a stream of running water. But to the public, it was another inexplicable piece of the nightmare. Faced with evidence that defied an easy answer, investigators closed the case in May 1959. Their conclusion? The hikers had died from a compelling natural force. The case files were then classified, sealing away the horrifying details until they were unsealed in the 1970s. For 60 years, that unsatisfying conclusion was all the world had. A compelling natural force. The phrase itself sounds like an admission that the truth was simply beyond their grasp. In the absence of a real explanation, theories flourished, ranging from the plausible to the paranormal. The most widely accepted modern theory is a slab avalanche. Imagine a heavy, frozen tablecloth being yanked off a table. That's the idea. A huge, solid plate of snow slid down onto the tent. This would explain why they had to cut their way out and could account for the crushing internal injuries. But this theory has holes. Critics point out that claiming an avalanche occurred when the rescuers saw no signs of one. Even the hikers' footprints were still visible. It's like saying a hurricane swept through a town. But all the lawn chairs are still perfectly arranged. And would an expert like Dyatlov really camp in a known avalanche zone? Most importantly, the avalanche theory struggles to explain the radiation. Yes, radiation. During the original investigation, some of the victims' clothing was found to have notable levels of beta radiation. This discovery fueled one of the most persistent theories, that the hikers stumbled upon a secret Soviet military weapons test. A parachute mine or a rocket test could explain a loud noise that sent them fleeing, the concussive force causing internal injuries and the subsequent cover-up. Some eyewitnesses in the region even reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky on the night of the incident, feeding speculation of military activity. And the theories get stranger. Some have proposed infrasound, a sound so low-pitched that humans can't hear it, but can feel it. Imagine a silent alarm that doesn't make a noise, but vibrates your very skull, creating a sense of pure, mind-bending terror that makes you run for your life from absolutely nothing. Others point to the local Mansi people, who consider the mountain sacred, though investigators quickly ruled that out. There was even a diary entry found that cryptically stated, "From now on, we know that snowmen exist," leading to wild speculation about an attack by a Yeti. For decades, the mystery remained frozen in time. The avalanche theory provided a plausible, scientific explanation, but for many, the pieces never quite fit. The case seemed destined to remain a perfect, unsolved mystery. But what if the compelling natural force wasn't a one-time event? What if it's still there? This idea of a reawakening has taken on a life of its own in the internet age. It's fueled by unconfirmed reports from more recent trips to the pass. While not backed by credible science, these stories add a modern layer to the legend. There are claims about discovering a powerful magnetic anomaly, like a glitch in the Earth's programming, right near the tent site. Whispers in online forums speak of a supposed 2025 expedition that captured strange, low-frequency sounds that echo the old infrasound theory, along with unexplained equipment malfunctions. These modern myths suggest that whatever happened that night wasn't a random occurrence like an avalanche or a singular military test. They hint at a recurring, localized phenomenon, almost like a geological booby trap. Could it be a pocket of natural gas that leaks intermittently from the Earth, causing hallucinations and death? A recurring atmospheric event unique to that cursed patch of land. This possibility recasts the entire event. It wasn't just a tragic accident, but an encounter with a place on Earth that is fundamentally hostile to human life in a way we still don't understand. The mystery of what really happened in 1959 is deeper and more terrifying than ever. It's a puzzle where every new theory only seems to add more questions. We explore these cases because the search for answers is part of who we are. If you want to support these deep dives into chilling, unsolved mysteries and help us continue to seek the truth, no matter how strange it gets, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Your support helps us uncover the next story that the world needs to hear. So, where does that leave us? We have 9 dead, experienced hikers. A tent sliced open from the inside. We have bodies that fled into a blizzard without shoes. Some found with bones crushed by a phantom force, one horrifically maimed by the elements, and others with traces of radiation on their clothes. We have theories. A slab avalanche that leaves no trace. A a secret military test that has never been acknowledged, paranormal events that stretch the limits of belief. And now, the chilling idea that the danger on Dead Mountain isn't a memory, but a dormant threat. Over 65 years later, no single theory can satisfyingly explain all the bizarre and contradictory evidence. It's like a locked room mystery where the key, the motive, and the weapon are all missing. The story endures not just because it's unsolved, but because it feels fundamentally unsolvable. It forces us to confront the possibility that there are forces in this world, natural or not, that defy our understanding. The 9 hikers on that slope met a terror so absolute, it shattered their training, their logic, and their will to live. All we're left with is the frozen, silent evidence of their final, desperate moments.